Live subtitles. Sometimes they're very smooth and you can read them no problem, and sometimes it's a real mess.
Yeah, they're really fantastic, live subtitles. They're really useful. Now, I don't know sometimes. I get a bit confused with the subtitles and the interpreter. I'm not sure where to look at. I feel like I need 4 eyes. I've only got 2 though. Which way can I look? It's really hard to pay attention to either subtitles or the interpreter.
I'm not sure really. I'm sure some information or words are missed. If there is acting, there is sometimes a delay, and you think, what? We need them to be exact and to match what's on the screen, or I won't understand.
Today I'm on a journey around the county of East Sussex, but it's going to be a little bit different, full stop.
There are 2 types of subtitles, those that are pre-recorded, mostly accurate and synchronised with speech, just like on See Here. Then there are those that are live, that mainly use a technique called re-speaking, and can often be delayed and prone to spelling mistakes and incongruous words. But why in the 21st century do errors continue to occur? Viewers of the Complaints programme Points of View have often asked the same question.
Stevie Wonder appeared on Friday night with Jonathan Ross to sing Superstition. The subtitling is now done by computer, and there were gigabytes of RAM trying to work out what Stevie was singing. And, oh, go on, Debbie Lee, you saw it, you tell us the story.
I always watch TV with the subtitles on. I have a slight hearing problem, so it made me laugh out loud when, as Stevie Wonder began to sing Superstition, the subtitles read, "Very supertitious."
Beautiful. As they say, to err is human, but for a really big mistake, you need a computer.
Why are these so poorly presented and so late in appearing on screen? In this age of new technology, surely a better service could be devised, especially when much of the content is a recording.
Lack of respect, says Les.
Well, nothing like that would be intended at all, and I would like to make sure that we keep improving if it's the case that we're misspelling, and I'll certainly take it up because we also want to have the highest standards of literacy and spelling.
It does want to make the system fairer, and that it does want to make life a little bit easier for those Lib Dems as well.
I think if it's live that they're talking about, obviously we can keep improving that. If it's programs that are pre-recorded, I think obviously the threshold for accuracy needs to be that much higher. So I'll certainly take away those complaints and investigate further.
So, have you ever wondered how subtitles are actually made? Well, it's not necessarily as easy as you might think. To dispel some myths about the creation of subtitles, we went to the BBC's subtitling company, Red Bee Media, to see firsthand how it all happens.
A nationwide general strike in Greece is expected to ground flights, shut down schools. This is the 7th general strike that Greece has had in the past year, and it has been 12 months of austerity, full stop. I listen to what the person on the television is saying, and then all I do really is repeat what they're saying into the microphone, and then the software converts that into text, which gets thrown up onto the television screen as subtitles. It sounds a lot simpler than it is. I can't just talk into the microphone as I'm talking now in a natural way. The software's not sophisticated enough to recognise what I'm saying. We have to make sure each word is very, very clear and defined. The sound of one word doesn't slip into the following word. So it's almost like a slightly robotic way of speaking, a very unnatural way of speaking. They ignored the unions, and so all the shouting today is going to be for nothing, full stop. The problems that we do face is when there's, say, a breaking news item. Today they had a breaking news item of an incident in Spain, I think. Now, if that were to happen and they then reeled off a lot of Spanish people's names, I would be quite nervous about then repeating those names because the software almost certainly wouldn't recognise them, and what you'd be left with was some rather incomprehensible subtitles on your television screen. The International Monetary Fund and the European Union, but the fact is that they have really lost this battle, full stop. There is a certain amount of training that you need to do to be able to repeat what the person on television is saying, whilst also listening to the forthcoming speech via the headphones, and editing, adding in punctuation, changing the colours as a different speaker comes on screen. They do not have the money to spend, so they cannot spend it, full stop. It is time that we check everything we do, the way we do it, full stop.
Legislation stipulated that 90% of ITV and Channel 4 programmes had to be subtitled by the end of 2010. The BBC is committed to subtitling all programmes already. Subtitling obligations have been extended to many other channels, whether they are broadcast by digital, terrestrial or digital satellite signals. Currently, most channels are ahead of their target. Alice Nattenborough is the Re-Speaking Development Manager at Red Bee Media.
The first programme that was subtitled on the BBC went out in 1979. That was a documentary. The first live programme on the BBC was in 1986. That was Blue Peter. The first live broadcast with stenography was in 1990. That's when we began subtitling live news with stenography. And the first re-speaking was used for subtitling in 2001. Since 2001, re-speaking has become more and more our norm, our way of subtitling live programmes.
Significant snowfall.
Stenographers still do subtitle a considerable proportion of our live output, but re-speaking is probably used for more live broadcasts now. Because it takes so long to become a stenographer, it's very, very hard to recruit enough stenographers to be able to cover the number of hours that we needed to subtitle live, so we had to find an alternative method, and that for us was re-speaking. In the future, we would be constantly striving to improve the quality of subtitles that we produce, to make the text as accurate as possible, to make the delay as short as possible for our viewers, and we would be aiming to do that through improvements in technology and also improvements in our techniques and our training of our staff.
Pablo Romero Fresco is a senior lecturer in audio-visual translation. Now that the quantity of subtitling seems achievable, he is researching ways to improve the quality.
This research is part of a project called Digital TV for All, which is funded by the European Commission, and it aims to facilitate access services throughout Europe, basically. What we did was we looked into what viewers think of subtitles across different countries in Europe, also how viewers understand the subtitles, and finally how they perceive them. That is, how they process the images along with the subtitles. So basically we were looking at preferences, comprehension and perception. The preferences, we looked into them with long questionnaires, so we disseminated as widely as possible in the UK with the help of the Royal National Institute for deaf people. Then the comprehension, we assessed it with screenings of subtitle clips and then some questions to find out how much viewers could understand of the clip and the subtitles. And finally, we looked into the perception with eye tracking technology, so using an eye tracker machine. This is an eye tracking machine, and what it does basically is it records the movements and the position of your eyes. And it looks like, so far, the less movement we can have in a subtitle, the better. So subtitles that have a great deal of movement, or indeed subtitles that are displayed in scrolling mode, word for word, what they do is they cause the viewers to spend a great deal of time on the subtitle and very little time on the images. Most of our participants spend 90% of the time looking at the subtitles and only 10% looking at the images, which meant that there was very little visual information they could obtain, and comprehension suffered a lot. Many viewers have unrealistic expectations of what current technology can provide. So some viewers seem to think that speech recognition technology, which is nowadays used for subtitling, can actually produce perfect subtitles with no need for human intervention, which is not the case yet. And therefore we believe that it is our task to provide accurate explanations of how live subtitling works, which would help to give an idea of what current technology can do and therefore what viewers can expect. So I think that's quite an important fact for us.